The living room was dressed in pastels and lies. Pink and lavender balloons clung to the ceiling like fragile bubbles waiting to burst, the satin ribbons trembling with every draft of air. The vanilla sugar smell of the three-tiered cake fought against the cloying fog of perfume, making the air heavy, almost suffocating. Guests, packed shoulder to shoulder, clutched plastic cups of punch, their voices pitched in forced cheer. It was supposed to be a celebration, a baby shower, but for me, it felt like walking into a courtroom where the verdict had already been decided. I was 29 years old, clutching a modest silver-wrapped box in both hands, my palms slick with sweat. I had skipped dinners, saved every extra dollar from my paycheck just to afford the handmade blanket folded carefully inside. The gift wasn't large or flashy, but it was chosen with thought and love. I told myself over and over as I approached the glittering chair in the center of the room, this was enough. Victoria, my sister, 31, glowing with the kind of beauty that never had to work for approval, sat draped in a sash that screamed, "Mommy to be." She reclined like a crowned queen, belly proudly rounded, a soft smile curling her lips as guests fawned. Even now pregnant, she carried herself with a sharpness, a shine, the golden child aura that had shadowed me all my life. Mother hovered nearby, fussing with plates and napkins. Father laughed at every word Victoria said like she was the only voice that mattered. When it was finally my turn, I stepped forward, knees trembling, forcing my lips into something that could pass as a smile. "Congratulations, Vic," I whispered, offering the box with both hands. For a fleeting second, I saw something in her eyes. Anticipation, maybe curiosity. She ripped the wrapping with exaggerated slowness, milking every second of attention. The blanket slid out soft cream fabric with careful embroidery of her child's initials. A hush. Then the laughter hit. Sharp, brittle, deliberate. She held the blanket high for everyone to see as though it were a joke. This is your big gift." Her voice sliced the room in two. "A rag from some thrift store. My sister the cheapskate, everyone." Laughter bubbled from the crowd, nervous, cruel. My cheeks burned hot. I tried to speak to explain, but my throat had closed dry as chalk. "Victoria." I managed my voice breaking. "It's handmade. I thought it was—" The crack came before the words were finished. Her palm collided with my cheek so hard the sound echoed like a whip across the decorated walls. My head snapped sideways, hair flying, the gift box tumbling from my hands and clattering on the hardwood floor. A copper tang filled my mouth, the sting of blood blooming along my lip. The room gasped collectively. Some guests froze, some raised their phones but lowered them just as quickly, unwilling to get involved. I stood paralyzed, the side of my face on fire, my body rigid with shock. For a heartbeat, silence reigned the balloons above, seeming to quiver in sympathy. Then the real betrayal struck. Mother rushed forward, but not to me. She wrapped her arms around Victoria's shoulders, pressing her close. "Oh, baby, don't cry," she cooed, as if my sister were the one injured. "You can't let yourself get upset in your condition." Father's voice cut sharper than the slap. "Clara, enough. Stop making a scene. Your sister is stressed. Don't ruin this day for her." Their arms closed protectively around Victoria as she sniffled into their shoulders, crocodile tears streaking her makeup while I stood alone, one hand pressed to my swollen cheek. The humiliation burned hotter than the pain. Every eye in the room avoided mine. Someone muttered, "Always drama with her," and laughter flickered like dry leaves. I wanted to disappear, to sink through the floor, but my body refused to move. In that endless moment, I realized the pattern would repeat again. Victoria strikes. Clara bleeds the family circles to protect her. But this time, the air shifted. The front door creaked open. A man stepped in tall, dark blazer-polished shoes, carrying him into the suffocating pink haze of the room. He didn't smile. He didn't clap. A badge gleamed in his hand, catching the chandelier's light. 3 letters leapt out in bold CPS. "Child Protective Services, Agent Morales." The silence deepened. His eyes swept the scene, my parents shielding Victoria as though she were porcelain guests, frozen mid-sip, me standing rigid with a crimson handprint etched across my cheek. He had seen enough. Victoria shrieked suddenly. She made me do it. Her finger stabbing toward me like a dagger. But Morales didn't look at her. His gaze stayed locked on me on the truth carved red across my skin. And in that piercing silence as my heart hammered against my ribs and shame twisted in my stomach, I felt something unfamiliar surge in my chest. For the first time, there was a witness who would not look away. For the first time, justice had walked straight through the door. My cheek still burned, as if fire itself had branded me the sting spreading down my jaw and into the hollow of my throat. I pressed trembling fingers to the welt, but before I could even process the humiliation, my mother's voice rang sharp through the silence, slicing deeper than the slap. "Clara, don't you dare overreact." Helen snapped her arms, still locked tightly around Victoria. "She's carrying a child. Do you have any idea how fragile she is right now?" I stared at her, stunned. Fragile. My sister had just slapped me so hard I could taste blood, and yet somehow I was the threat. The room pulsed with whispers, the weight of every pair of eyes pressing against my skin like hot irons. I could feel the judgment radiating Clara the troublemaker, Clara the jealous one, Clara ruining yet another family event. Richard stepped forward, his expression stern, the father who only reserved that tone for me. "Clara, stop this nonsense," he commanded. "You've always had a flair for the dramatic, but this is ridiculous. Your sister is pregnant. Do you want to send her into early labor with your theatrics?" The word theatrics hung in the air, sticky, suffocating. I felt my pulse hammering in my temples. "She hit me," I whispered, barely able to find my voice. "You all saw it. She slapped me in front of everyone." But instead of acknowledgement, I was met with rolling eyes and dismissive waves. Helen stroked Victoria's hair like she was soothing a child. "She didn't mean it, sweetheart. You know how Clara provokes. Always pushing, always criticizing. You just reacted." Reacted. That was the word my family always used to erase her violence and blame me instead. Reacted when she screamed at me during Thanksgiving and threw a plate across the room. Reacted when she shoved me into the hallway wall after I confronted her about a loan I had been forced to pay off. Reacted when she humiliated me at Christmas by unwrapping the gift she had stolen from my closet and claiming it as her own. I opened my mouth to argue, to tell them that this wasn't just a reaction, that I had walked into this party with nothing but kindness, but my father cut me down again. "Don't start another scene, Clara. We will not let you ruin Victoria's baby shower. Not today." Around us, the guests shifted uncomfortably. A few shook their heads in silent agreement. One woman whispered too loudly, "She always does this, doesn't she?" Another chuckled under her breath, the jealous sister act again. I felt the humiliation swell inside me like a tidal wave threatening to choke me. Victoria Crocodile, tears streaking her cheeks, clung tighter to my mother. "She hates me," she whimpered. "She hates that I'm having a baby. She wants to ruin everything." Her words dripped with venom dressed as innocence, and Helen kissed her temple as if she were the victim. "She's fragile," my mother repeated like a prayer, each syllable a knife in my chest. "And you, Clara, you've always been too hard. You can handle more. You always could." The old refrain, the justification I had heard my entire life. Clara can handle it. Clara can endure. Clara is strong enough to carry it all, so let Victoria stumble. Let Victoria lash out. Let Victoria be forgiven again and again. I stood there, the welt on my face, throbbing the laughter and whispers, buzzing like bees around me. I wanted to scream that strength does not mean being disposable, that endurance is not the same as love. But the words clung to my throat, heavy with years of being silenced. And then Agent Morales cleared his throat, the sound startling in the thick quiet. His voice was calm, but carried authority that silenced the buzzing instantly. "I'm going to need to speak with everyone here," he said. His eyes cut to me, steady, unwavering, as if to remind me that he had seen it all. But my parents didn't notice, or perhaps they refused to. My father turned back to me, eyes narrowed, and hissed under his breath so only I could hear. "Don't you dare make this worse, Clara. Don't you dare." I swallowed hard, the copper taste still on my tongue. Worse, I thought bitterly. How much worse could it get when your own parents protect the hand that strikes you and call it love? Agent Morales' voice still echoed in the room, but my mind spiraled backward, pulled into the long, ugly history that had led me here. That slap wasn't just one moment, it was the culmination of decades, a lifetime of being invisible, blamed, and used. I was 7 the first time I understood that Victoria and I were not equals. It was her birthday, and the backyard was strung with lights folding tables sagging under the weight of cakes, presents, and balloons. She twirled in a brand new dress, laughing as her friends showered her with attention. I had been given a plain slice of cake and told to keep out of the way. When I tried to play tag with her friends, Victoria shoved me to the ground, my knee scraping against the concrete. Blood welled up, stinging. I cried, but my mother rushed to scoop up Victoria instead, scolding me. "Don't upset your sister. She's sensitive. You're tougher than that, Clara." That was the first time I heard it, "You can handle more." By the time I was 12, I had learned to disappear during family gatherings. Thanksgiving was the worst. My mother would hand me a rag and point to the kitchen while Victoria lounged in the living room with cousins bragging about grades she hadn't earned and clothes she didn't buy. If I asked for help, my father would sigh. "Clara, don't be selfish. Your sister isn't good at chores. Just let her be." By dessert, my back ached, my hands smelled of turkey fat and lemon cleaner, and still I was invisible. High school only sharpened the contrast. I studied late into the night, earned honors, and won a scholarship. The day I brought home the letter, glowing with relief, I held it out proudly. My parents barely glanced at it before asking me to loan Victoria money for her prom dress. She hadn't even applied to colleges yet. She was treated like the future of the family while I was the workhorse. At graduation, when my name was called and I crossed the stage, I searched the audience. My parents clapped politely. But when Victoria tripped walking down the bleachers after the ceremony, everyone rushed to her side as if she were the star. Then came the financial shackles. At 22, fresh out of college, I got my first job. It wasn't much, but it was steady. Victoria had already racked up credit card debt and wanted a BMW. BMW she couldn't afford. "Just co-sign," my father told me. "She'll make the payments. It'll help her build responsibility." Against my gut, I signed. 3 months later, the calls began, missed payments, overdue notices. I scraped together my paychecks to cover them because my parents begged, "Don't let your sister's credit be ruined. You can handle it, Clara." She can't. By the end of that year, I was living off instant noodles while Victoria flaunted the BMW around town, posting selfies about how blessed she was. Christmas after Christmas followed the same script. She unwrapped designer handbags and new jewelry, while my presents were aprons, cookbooks, or nothing at all. Once, when I asked why, my mother said bluntly, "Your sister needs encouragement." "You don't." The bitterness curdled in my chest, but I swallowed it down. The worst humiliation came at 26. I had scraped together enough to rent my own apartment, proud of the independence I had fought for. But when Victoria missed another payment on the BMW, the collectors came after me. I sold nearly everything of value, my couch, my television, the little jewelry I owned, just to keep my credit alive. When I begged my parents for help, my mother's voice was icy. "Stop being dramatic. You're stronger than she is. Be grateful you can help your sister." Every milestone of my life had been stolen, diminished, or overshadowed. When I got a promotion, Victoria announced she was moving in with a new boyfriend, and my news was forgotten. When I saved to take a weekend trip with friends, she borrowed the money for rent and never paid it back. The pattern was endless, the same refrain each time: "She's fragile, you're strong, endure it for the family." And now here we were standing in a room decorated with pastel lies, history repeating itself in front of dozens of witnesses. I could still feel the sting of Victoria's slap, but it was layered over every wound before it, every dismissal, every ignored achievement, every dollar stolen, every sacrifice demanded without thanks. As I pressed my hand against my swollen cheek, I thought of the girl on the playground at 7, bleeding, while everyone rushed to comfort Victoria. I thought of the teenager bent over a sink full of dishes, listening to the laughter spill from the living room. I thought of the young woman signing her name on a loan she knew would ruin her just to protect her sister's shiny image. The slap wasn't just skin against skin. It was a lifetime of contempt and exploitation condensed into a single strike. And when my parents pulled her close and whispered that she was fragile, I realized the truth I had refused to face for years. They would never change. To them, Victoria would always be the golden child, and I would always be the scapegoat, the strong one, the one expected to carry it all. But now, Agent Morales stood in the doorway, his gaze heavy with the weight of law, of consequence, of truth. For the first time, there was someone who saw through the performance, who would not be swayed by crocodile tears or gaslighting whispers. For the first time, I wasn't just the strong one. I was the one with proof, living proof imprinted red across my face, that endurance had its limits and justice was finally watching. The sound of the slap still echoed in my ears, louder than the shrill laughter that had filled the house only moments earlier. I could feel every eye in that room pressing down on me 1,000 pounds of silent judgment. My cheek pulsed hot, swelling beneath my fingers. The copper tang of blood mixed with frosting and fruit punch in the air, turning the sweetness of the baby shower into something rancid. Victoria sat back like nothing had happened, her manicured fingers still trembling dramatically against her lips. "Oh my God," she whimpered, her voice pitched high and fragile. "She made me do it. She's always trying to ruin my life." The words landed with precision, another knife between my ribs. She had just assaulted me in front of a room full of witnesses, and still she played the victim as if her pregnancy excused everything. Mother was quick to play along. Helen clutched Victoria's shoulders, rocking her like a child. "Hush now, baby. You're under so much stress. Don't let Clara get to you." Her eyes cut toward me cold and sharp. "Why did you even come if you were going to make a scene?" My father wasn't far behind, his jaw tight, his disappointment directed at me alone. "Clara, I warned you. You always push her too far. She's carrying a child. You're selfish to upset her like this." His words landed harder than the slap. He wasn't just dismissing me, he was convicting me, sentencing me in front of everyone as though I were the criminal. The guests shifted uneasily, some sipping from their cups, others pretending to check their phones. A few avoided eye contact altogether. One young woman in the corner raised her phone as though she had recorded it all. But when Helen's glare swept across the room, she quickly lowered it, tucking the phone into her purse. Silence wrapped around me, suffocating and humiliating, broken only by Victoria's forced sobs. I bent down to pick up the gift that had fallen the blanket now crumpled on the floor, its carefully stitched initials smeared with frosting from a fallen cupcake. I smoothed it out with shaking hands, desperate to hold on to something, anything that still felt like mine. But when I stood, the sneers were waiting. "Clara, you have always been jealous," Victoria spat between crocodile tears, her voice rising so the whole room could hear. "You can't stand that I'm happy that I'm finally starting a family. You'll never have what I have." Her eyes glimmered with cruelty, even as tears streaked her cheeks. The room buzzed with whispers, nods, and half-hidden smirks. The urge to scream surged inside me, but my voice faltered. I didn't do anything I said, the words trembling out of me like a plea. "I came here to celebrate you. Enough," my father barked. His voice cracked like a whip, silencing me completely. "You will not ruin this day. If you can't control yourself, you should leave." The shame burned deeper than the slap. I looked around at the faces, family, friends, neighbors, distant relatives. Not one of them stepped forward. Not one dared to say the truth out loud. In their silence, I was condemned. Then, like the universe itself had decided enough was enough, the shift happened. Agent Morales, who had been standing near the back, stepped fully into view. The badge on his belt glinted under the overhead light. His expression was unreadable, carved from stone, but his eyes told me everything he had seen enough. The chatter died instantly. A guest whispered CPS, and the word spread like electricity through the room. Child Protective Services. The very agency that had the power to determine whether Victoria could raise her unborn child. Morales's voice was steady, commanding. "I'll need statements from everyone here." His gaze swept over the stunned crowd, then settled on me. I stood frozen, my face flushed red, my breathing shallow. For the first time in my life, an authority figure wasn't looking at me like I was the problem. He was looking at me like I was the evidence. Victoria's tears turned frantic. She lunged toward my mother, clinging tighter. "She's lying. She's making this up." Her words cracked desperate. "You all saw she provoked me. She made me do it." But her performance fell flat against the silence. No one rushed to support her now, not with Morales's eyes piercing through every lie. Even my parents seemed rattled, though they clung to their roles. Helen whispered fiercely into Victoria's hair. "Stay calm. Don't give them a reason." Richard's lips pressed into a thin line, his face pale. "And me?" For the first time in years, I didn't feel invisible. The heat on my cheek was still there, but it was no longer just pain. It was proof. A red, undeniable imprint that told the story my parents had tried to erase my entire life. I met Morales's eyes and saw it recognition, validation. He had walked into a room filled with balloons, cake, and lies, and he had seen through it all. He had seen the golden child strike, the parents protect, and the scapegoat stand alone. This time, I thought the truth won't be buried. This time, they can't gaslight me into silence. This time, justice had a witness. I stumbled out of the living room as the air closed in around me, the buzz of whispers trailing behind like gnats I couldn't swat away. My cheek throbbed with every heartbeat, heat radiating through bone and muscle. I could still hear Victoria's faux sobs, the soothing coos of my mother, my father's sharp reprimand ringing in my skull. I needed air. I needed distance. I pushed through the porch door and nearly collapsed against the wooden railing, the night air cool against my burning face. My hands shook as I pulled out my phone. For one desperate moment, I believed maybe, just maybe, if I called my mother when she wasn't surrounded by the spectacle, she would listen. She had to. My thumb hovered over her contact before pressing. The ring dragged on each tone, stretching my nerves thinner. Finally, she answered, her voice clipped. "What is it now, Clara?" she snapped before I could speak. "She hit me," I whispered, my throat raw. "You saw it! Everyone saw it! Mom, she slapped me in front of everyone! And you," my voice cracked, "you went to her instead of me." There was silence on the other end, then the sharp hiss of breath. "Lower your voice. Do not make this worse than it already is." Her tone wasn't maternal, it was cold steel. "Your sister is fragile. She is pregnant. Do you want to endanger the baby by dragging this out?" "Endanger the baby." I choked the words, tasting like ash. "She endangered me. She could have—" "Stop it!" My mother cut me off, her voice icy. "You've always been dramatic, always twisting things to get attention. You're not the victim here, Clara. Don't you dare act like one." The line went dead before I could respond. I stared at the phone, my reflection warped in the dark glass, tears blurring the screen. For a moment, I thought about hurling it into the yard, shattering the last tie holding me to them. Instead, I dialed my father. He answered quickly as if expecting me. "Clara." His voice was heavy with disappointment. "Dad, please," I begged, my voice cracking. "You know what happened in there. You saw it. She hit me. And Mom, she just—" "Clara," he interrupted, his tone, weary, patronizing. "You need to stop this. Right now. Do you hear me? Families have disagreements, but dragging outsiders into this. That CPS agent, that's a line you don't cross." "Dad, I didn't bring him here." He walked in, he saw. "Don't play innocent," he snapped. "You've always known how to stir things up. Always jealous, always provoking. If Victoria lashed out, it's because you pushed her. You know how sensitive she is. And now, thanks to you, her child might be taken from her. Is that what you want? To ruin your sister's life? To destroy this family?" The words sliced me open. My mouth opened and closed, searching for an answer that wouldn't sound like a crime. "I want someone to care that she hit me," I whispered. But he had already decided. "Grow up, Clara. Stop being cruel to your sister. She needs us right now, not your theatrics." The call ended, leaving me in silence but for the steady hum of crickets in the yard. My knees gave way and I sank onto the porch steps, the wood cold and damp beneath me. I pressed the phone to my chest, clutching it like it could anchor me, but all it did was remind me how alone I was. Inside, laughter resumed, forced but flowing. Victoria's voice carried above the rest, high and tremulous, the practiced wail of the eternal victim. My parents chimed in soothing, excusing, protecting. To them, nothing had changed. Clara could handle it. Clara always could. I bit down hard on my lip, tasting fresh blood, the sting sharper than before. A sob tore from my throat, ragged and ugly, the sound of decades of silence breaking open. For the first time, I let myself admit the truth. I was not part of that family anymore. I was a scapegoat, an outsider. And if I stayed tethered to their lies, they would watch me bleed and call it love. The porch light buzzed above me, insects circling in lazy spirals while I sat curled on the steps with my cheek still throbbing. The noise of the baby shower bled through the walls, forced laughter music, clinking glasses like nothing had happened. My phone felt like a brick in my hand, heavy with silence from both my parents. I pressed it to my chest and shut my eyes, trying to breathe when a familiar voice cut through the night. Clara. I looked up, startled. Leah stood there, her nurse's scrubs still visible beneath a cardigan, hair pulled into a loose bun. She must have come straight from a late shift. Her eyes widened when she saw the welt across my cheek, the swelling already starting to discolor into purple. "Oh my God," she whispered, crouching down in front of me. Her fingers hovered near my face, gentle, professional, but she didn't touch. "She hit you, didn't she?" The tears I'd been holding back spilled over. In front of everyone, I managed. And my parents. They hugged her. They told me not to make it worse. Leah's jaw tightened, fury flashing in her eyes. "That's not just family drama, Clara. That's assault. You need to be in an ER right now, not sitting out here bleeding while they coddle her." I shook my head, wiping my tears with the back of my sleeve. "They'll just say I'm exaggerating. They always do." Leah reached into her bag and pulled out her phone. "Then we get evidence. Sit still." She angled the camera, snapping pictures of the red imprint across my face, the swelling along my jaw, the smear of blood at my lip. She zoomed in, capturing everything in unforgiving clarity. "This doesn't lie," she said firmly. "No matter what they say, your face tells the truth." Her confidence steadied me. I exhaled a shaky breath as she continued, almost businesslike. "Now, you need more than photos. Get medical records, a police report. Clara, I'm serious, this can't keep happening. You can't keep letting them bury you under their lies." The words lodged deep. I nodded because somewhere inside I knew she was right. Later that night, Leah drove me to the urgent care clinic where she sometimes worked. Under fluorescent lights, a doctor confirmed what I already felt: bruising, swelling, possible tissue damage. He dictated notes, clinical and detached, but every word felt like validation carved into paper. Leah tucked the paperwork into a folder and pressed it into my hands. "Proof," she said again. "No one can erase this." 2 days later, I sat across from attorney Denise Carter in a tidy office lined with shelves of leather-bound case files. She was sharp-eyed, composed, with a voice that carried authority without ever needing to raise it. Leah had insisted I meet her. Denise studied the photos, the medical report, and finally me. She leaned back in her chair, fingers steepled. "This isn't just a slap, Clara. This is a pattern of abuse and neglect, compounded by your family's enabling behavior. And now that CPS is involved, the stakes are even higher. You need to protect yourself legally." I swallowed hard. "They'll deny everything. They always do. They'll make it sound like I provoked her." Denise's lips curved into something between a smile and a grimace. "Then we don't give them the chance. We gather everything: texts, voicemails, financial records. Anything that shows a history of you carrying the burden while she lashes out. You're not just defending yourself against a slap, Clara. You're exposing a system of favoritism and exploitation." The word exploitation rang in my ears. I thought of the BMW loan, the unpaid bills, the years of being the invisible mule for my sister's recklessness. My chest tightened, but not with fear, with a rising sense of resolve. Leah reached across the table, squeezing my hand. "You've carried them long enough. It's time to carry yourself." I looked at the folder of evidence in front of me, then at Denise, who was already drafting a plan. For the first time, I didn't feel like a scapegoat begging for scraps of validation. I felt like a woman standing at the edge of something bigger, the chance to finally be heard. Denise's pen scratched across her legal pad. "Step 1, build a case file. Step 2, file a restraining order. Step 3, let CPS do their job. Your sister thinks she's untouchable, Clara, but the law doesn't play favorites." The words were steady anchoring. Leah's hand was warm in mine, and for the first time in years I realized I wasn't alone anymore. I had allies, I had proof, and I had a path forward that didn't end with me bleeding in silence. The next week became a blur of gathering scraps of truth, the kind my parents had always dismissed as drama. Denise guided every step, her voice crispy with purpose, her pen moving faster than my panic. "Evidence never blinks," she reminded me, and the words became a mantra. First came the photos Leah had taken, the stark outline of my sister's handprint burned into my cheek, the purpling bruise that spread like spilled ink along my jawline. Denise had them printed, time-stamped, and cataloged. Beside them, she placed the urgent care report, the sterile clinical notes that listed soft tissue damage consistent with blunt force trauma. It wasn't just my word anymore, it was medicine, it was fact. Then, the recordings. My phone became a vault of their cruelty. One night, I called my mother again, just to hear the truth come from her lips. I kept my voice calm, steady, asking why she hadn't defended me. Her sigh cut through the line, sharp and cold. "You know how your sister is, Clara. Don't be cruel. She's fragile. You can handle it." The words spoken so casually would later play in a courtroom for strangers who had never met me but would finally know who I was. Another voicemail, this time from my father. His voice low, deliberate. "Stop exaggerating. Families don't drag outsiders into private matters. If you keep this up, you'll regret it." Denise replayed it twice, her eyes narrowing. "That she said is intimidation. It shows exactly how far they'll go to silence you." Next came the financial trail, the debts that had buried me for years. I spent late nights digging through drawers, pulling out old files, receipts crumpled at the edges, contracts signed with hands that had shaken but obeyed. There it was in black and white, the BMW loan I had co-signed at 22, every payment missed by Victoria, every balance paid by me. Denise highlighted the clauses, her expression tightening. "This shows a clear pattern of financial exploitation." There were credit card statements, too, charges from luxury stores that I had never stepped into, but my name tied to the accounts because my parents insisted Victoria needed a chance to build credit, and the bank transfers, dozens of them, money siphoned from me under the guise of helping your sister get on her feet. Denise spread them across her desk like puzzle pieces, forming a picture of systematic abuse. Leah helped me organize it all, building a binder that grew heavier with each passing day. "Every bruise, every dollar, every voicemail, it all matters," she said as we slid documents into plastic sleeves. "They've told you for years your pain didn't count, but here it counts." And then came the digital evidence. A friend who had been at the baby shower nervously sent me a short clip she had recorded before shoving her phone away in fear. It was shaky, but clear enough, Victoria holding up the blanket, sneering, the crowd tittering. The camera jerked just as the slap landed, but the sound, the sharp crack, was unmistakable. Gasps followed, then my mother's voice. "Don't upset your sister." Denise nearly smiled when she heard it. "Video," she said. "Even if it's brief, it's undeniable." Piece by piece, the narrative they had buried for decades came into the light. I felt both vindicated and terrified as the binder grew thicker. Each page was a wound reopened, proof of scars I had tried to ignore. Yet with every addition, the weight on my chest lifted slightly. I wasn't just imagining it. I wasn't being dramatic. It was real. One night, after hours of sorting through statements, Leah made us tea and sat across from me at the kitchen table. "You know what the hardest part will be?" she asked softly. "Hearing them deny all of it. Even with this mountain of evidence, they'll look you in the eye and call you a liar. That's who they are. You need to be ready." I stared at the binder, its spine stretched to bursting, and nodded. "They've been calling me a liar my whole life. The difference is now I can prove I'm not." Denise scheduled the next steps file for a restraining order, submit the binder to CPS, prepare statements for court. As she outlined the plan, her words were sharp, methodical, but her eyes were steady, grounding me. "They've built their world on gaslighting and favoritism, Clara, but worlds like that crumble when the truth is documented, and you finally have the truth." For the first time, I looked at the evidence not as scars, but as weapons, not as weight, but as armor. And I knew the next time I faced my family, I would not come empty-handed. The hospital smelled of antiseptic and stale air, a place where truth was supposed to be written in blood tests and x-rays, not family lies. I sat in the examination room, cheeks still mottled with yellow and purple, my binder of evidence balanced on my lap like a shield. Leah stood near the counter, arms folded, while Denise arranged papers neatly on the chair beside her. My pulse thudded against my ribs, steady but nervous, because Denise had warned me what was coming. "They'll try to corner you here." "Let them. Just be ready." The door swung open without a knock. My parents swept in as if they owned the space, my mother's perfume, sharp enough to sting my father's jaw, set in that familiar disapproval. Behind them came Victoria, waddling in dramatically despite her pregnancy being only 6 months along her hand, pressed to her belly, like she was auditioning for sainthood. "Clara," my mother said immediately, her voice dripping with false concern. "What have you done? The neighbors are calling, people are whispering CPS is sniffing around. All because you couldn't let your sister have one happy day." I kept my lips pressed tight, fingers gripping the binder. My father's voice followed low and heavy. "You've taken this too far. Morales is asking questions about your sister, about our family. Do you realize the damage you're causing? He could take her baby. Is that what you want? To destroy your own niece before she's even born." The word destroy landed in my gut like a stone. I opened my mouth, but Victoria beat me to it, her voice pitched in a practiced whimper. "You hate me, Clara. You've always hated me, and now you're trying to take my child away. You slapped yourself, didn't you? Just to make me look bad." For a second, the world tilted absurdity, clawing at my sanity. My laughter came sharp, brittle. I slapped myself in front of 40 people with your hand on my face. Mother gasped, clutching Victoria tighter, glaring at me as though I'd just confessed to murder. "Stop twisting the story. You always manipulate. She's fragile, Clara. You know that. She didn't mean it." Fragile. The word again. My nails dug into the binder's plastic cover. Denise leaned forward, calm but commanding. "Enough. Ms. Jennings, Mr. Jennings, your daughter's injuries are documented. Photos, medical reports, recordings, financial records. CPS has already been notified. Whether you like it or not, this is no longer a family matter. It is a legal one." Victoria's eyes widened, panic flashing before she masked it with another sob. "She's lying. All of it is lies." I rose then, my knees trembling, but my voice steady because this was the moment Leah had warned me about. I flipped the binder open, pulling a sheet free. "Voicemail," I said, pressing play on my phone. My mother's voice filled the sterile room. "Don't ruin your sister's life. She's fragile. You can handle more." The words echoed, undeniable, and for once it wasn't me saying them. It was her. Next, my father's voicemail, sharp and threatening. "If you keep this up, you'll regret it." His face blanched as the words replayed his authority crumbling beneath his own voice. Victoria lunged forward, face twisted, but Denise raised a hand, her tone like steel. "Sit down. Every threat, every denial, it's all here, and it will all be presented in court." The air felt electrics buzzing with decades of secrets unraveling. My parents looked between each other, their practiced wall of unity cracking. Victoria whimpered louder, clutching her belly like a shield. "She's trying to take my baby," she cried. "She's jealous. She's cruel." The door opened again, and in stepped Agent Morales, clipboard in hand. His presence silenced everything. He scanned the room, eyes lingering on my bruised face, then shifting to Victoria's theatrics. "I've reviewed the preliminary evidence," he said evenly. "We are officially opening an investigation into child endangerment and domestic violence. Until further notice, Ms. Victoria Jennings will be under monitoring by Child Protective Services." Gasps broke from my mother. My father stepped back, but Morales wasn't finished. "And regarding the assault charges, will proceed. The law does not excuse violence regardless of pregnancy. This is now a matter for the courts." Victoria's sobs turned into a shriek, high and piercing. "No, you can't do this. She provoked me. She always provokes me." She turned to our parents, desperate. "Say something. Tell them." But for once, their words failed. My father's mouth opened, then closed. My mother's hands shook against Victoria's shoulders. The scripts they had recited my entire life, fragile, dramatic, selfish, cruel, sounded hollow now in the face of law and evidence. I straightened my voice calm, almost quiet. "You always said I could handle more. But you were wrong. I won't handle your lies anymore. Not for her, not for you." Morales's eyes flicked to me, a brief nod of recognition, before he turned back to the others. "I suggest you all cooperate, because the days of burying this are over." And just like that, the courtroom I had lived in since childhood, the one where I was always guilty, always punished, collapsed. For the first time, I wasn't the one on trial. They were. The courthouse was colder than I expected, its marble floors echoing beneath every hesitant step I took. Sunlight filtered through the high windows, fractured by dusty glass, but it felt harsh, exposing. I sat at the plaintiff's table beside Denise, my binder of evidence stacked neatly before me. Leah sat in the back row for support, her presence a steady anchor. Across the aisle, my parents flanked Victoria like bodyguards, whispering urgently into her ear. She looked fragile on purpose, her hair pulled back, her belly cradled with both hands, as though the sight alone might sway sympathy. When the judge entered, everyone rose, the air thick with anticipation. He was an older man, silver hair, glasses perched low on his nose, his expression carved in stone. He glanced between us before settling in. "We are here to address charges of assault as well as the petition for a restraining order filed by Ms. Clara Jennings." The words made my stomach twist, but Denise's calm hand on mine steadied me. The prosecutor laid out the facts first. The slap, the witnesses, the photographs projected onto a screen where the entire courtroom saw the red handprint blazing across my cheek. Murmurs rippled through the audience, but the judge silenced them with a single look. Next came the urgent care report, the medical language, clinical and brutal soft tissue damage, blunt force trauma. Then the voicemail recordings, my mother's words, my father's threats played aloud in a chamber that echoed. Their voices bounced off the walls, undeniable. I watched my parents flinch, their faces paling as their own words betrayed them. Denise rose, then her voice calm but piercing. She laid out the financial records, the co-signed BMW loan, the credit card debt, the transfers, all proof of years of exploitation. "This is not simply a case of one slap," she told the judge. "It is a pattern, a cycle of favoritism and gaslighting culminating in physical violence that was witnessed not only by dozens of guests but by a Child Protective Services agent." When Agent Morales took the stand, his testimony cut through the room like a blade. I entered the Jennings residence during the baby shower. I personally witnessed Ms. Victoria Jennings strike her sister across the face. I also observed the immediate reaction of the parents who comforted the aggressor rather than the victim. In my professional judgment, this incident raises significant concerns regarding the safety of the unborn child as well as the family's capacity to prioritize truth over denial. His tone was steady professional, but the weight of his authority landed with finality. Victoria's attorney tried to spin it, painting me as jealous, unstable, exaggerating. He pointed to my silence during childhood events, claiming I had a history of misunderstanding family dynamics. He even suggested the bruise was minor, but the judge's eyes hardened when the shaky video clip was played, the unmistakable crack of a hand against flesh, the gasp of the crowd, my mother's voice scolding me instead of the one who struck. The courtroom fell silent afterward. When it was my turn to speak, I rose slowly, clutching the podium with trembling hands. My voice quivered at first, but as I spoke, strength filled me. All my life I was told I could handle more, that I was strong enough to carry it all. While my sister was shielded, excused, forgiven no matter what she did, I was told to endure. That slap wasn't the first time I was hurt, but it was the first time the truth had witnesses. I am not here out of jealousy. I am here because silence almost killed me. I will not let it happen again. The judge leaned back, fingers steepled, silence hanging heavy after my words. Finally he spoke. "The evidence is clear. Assault occurred. The attempt to justify it under the guise of stress or fragility is unacceptable in this court. No one is above accountability, not even the so-called fragile." He turned to Victoria, who sat trembling, her crocodile tears drying on her cheeks. "You are hereby found guilty of misdemeanor assault. You will serve a sentence of probation, attend mandatory anger management counseling, and perform 200 hours of community service. More importantly, a restraining order will be granted. You are not to approach or contact your sister, Ms. Clara Jennings, for the next 3 years. Gasps rippled again, this time from my parents. My mother clutched Victoria's hand, whispering frantically. My father's jaw worked, grinding unspoken words. The judge's voice cut through them. "Additionally, CPS will maintain oversight of the pregnancy and subsequent child welfare. Any further incidents of violence or neglect will result in the removal of custody. Consider this your final warning." Victoria's sob broke into a wail echoing through the chamber. My parents leaned in to comfort her, their faces masks of horror and disbelief. But the gavel struck final and sharp. The case was decided. I sat back down, exhaling a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. Denise squeezed my hand, her voice low but firm. Justice doesn't always come swiftly, but today it came. Across the aisle, my family's fortress of denial cracked wide open. For decades, their words had defined me dramatic, cruel, jealous, strong enough to take it. But now, in the eyes of the law, their words had condemned them instead. And as I gathered my binder, the weight no longer felt like chains. It felt like freedom. For the first time, I walked out of that courtroom not as the scapegoat, but as the survivor who finally held proof that the truth could not be silenced. The verdict didn't end it. If anything, it set fire to the wreckage my parents refused to abandon. Within hours of the gavel striking, the whispers began spreading through our town like smoke and dry air. By evening, my phone lit up with notifications I hadn't expected: posts, comments, half-truths wrapped in lies. Victoria had wasted no time. On Facebook, she shared a photo of herself cradling her belly, eyes red and puffy, captioned, "Some people will do anything to destroy a pregnant woman's joy. Please pray for my baby and me as we endure jealousy and cruelty." The comments poured in. Old neighbors, family friends, even distant cousins chimed in with sympathy. "Stay strong, Victoria. Ignore the drama, focus on your child," and the one that made my stomach churn. "Your sister always seemed bitter. Now we know why." My mother reposted it with her own message: "Families should heal in private." Unfortunately, not everyone understands loyalty. My daughter is suffering because of malicious lies. My father followed suit, his words clipped and cold. "Clara has exaggerated for attention." Anyone who knows us knows Victoria's heart. She would never hurt anyone intentionally. Their narrative spread faster than any evidence I had shared. Pictures of my bruised cheek were labeled photoshopped. The video clip from the baby shower dismissed as out of context. Even the court documents, though public record, were ignored by those who clung to the family's version. For a moment, it worked. I felt the familiar sting of isolation, the crushing weight of being painted as the villain. People I had once babysat for crossed the street to avoid me. The grocery clerk who had known me since I was 12 bagged my items without a word, his eyes sliding away. One night, Leah found me scrolling through the comments, my face pale in the glow of my phone. "Stop!" she said, firmly taking it from my hands. "You survived the truth in court. You don't need to survive their gossip too." "But everyone believes them," I whispered. "It's like none of the evidence mattered. They still see me as the jealous sister." Leah's eyes softened, but her voice stayed strong. "Clara, you didn't go through all of this for everyone. You went through it for you, for the truth. And the truth doesn't need likes and shares to exist." Denise, always pragmatic, had another approach. She called me into her office 2 days later, sliding a stack of printed posts across her desk. "We're documenting all of this. Every smear, every lie. Online defamation, especially when it contradicts a court ruling, can and will backfire." I frowned. "But doesn't that just make it worse? They'll say I'm trying to silence them." Her eyes locked on mine. "They've already tried to silence you your whole life. The difference now is the law is on your side. Let them rant online. The more they talk, the more evidence they give us." Still, the sting of betrayal cut deeper than any legal strategy. Seeing my parents, the people who were supposed to protect me publicly, smear me to protect Victoria, it hollowed me out. Nights blurred into restless hours, the comments replaying in my head, each one a reminder that the world still saw me through their poisoned lens. But then a quiet shift. An old friend from high school messaged me privately. "I was at the shower. I saw everything. I'm sorry I didn't speak up sooner. People need to know the truth." Another wrote, "My cousin works at urgent care. She told me how bad your injuries were. Don't let them convince you you're crazy. You're not." And slowly, others joined. Small voices, at first hesitant, then louder, defending me in comment threads, countering lies with facts. They shared the video clip, the court documents, the reality my parents tried to erase. It didn't silence the smear campaign, but it balanced it. For the first time, their story wasn't the only one circulating. Leah was right. Denise was right. The truth didn't need everyone. It only needed enough. One evening, as I sat with Leah over tea, my phone buzzed with a message from Denise: "Restraining order officially processed. CPS oversight confirmed. You're protected." I exhaled, shoulders sagging with relief. The smear campaign still howled online. My parents still painted me as cruel. Victoria still played the martyr. But their words no longer carried the same power. They couldn't erase the bruise that had healed on my face, the court ruling etched into record the allies who now stood beside me. The smear campaign was noise, and for the first time in my life, I wasn't alone in cutting through it. If the smear campaign was noise, the financial ties were chains, and they still bound me tighter than I liked to admit. Every bill with my name on it, every co-signed loan, every account my parents insisted we share for convenience was a reminder that their control didn't end at words. Denise had warned me during our first consultation. You won't be free until you cut every cord. Emotional, legal, financial. They'll use money as a leash if you let them. So we began the slow, grueling process. First, the BMW loan. I still remembered signing those papers at 22, my parents' voices urging, "It's just a formality, Clara. She'll handle the payments. You're helping your sister get a start." Now, years later, the car was gone repossessed after Victoria defaulted, but the debt lingered in my credit history like a ghost. Denise guided me through filing a claim, attaching proof of coercion and Victoria's missed payments. It wouldn't erase the past, but it would sever my liability for her reckless choices going forward. Next, the joint credit cards. My parents had opened them to teach you girls about responsibility, but somehow every statement arrived with charges I'd never made. Luxury purses, spa retreats, even a honeymoon deposit that Victoria never refunded. I sat at my kitchen table with Leah, combing through stacks of old statements highlighting each fraudulent charge. The more I looked, the angrier I became, not just at the money, but at how ordinary it had all felt at the time. I'd accepted it as my role, the strong one, the provider. Denise filed the paperwork to remove my name. "They may fight it," she warned. "They'll say you agreed that you knew. But the pattern of exploitation is clear. Judges recognize this kind of financial abuse more than people think." Then came the house. Not mine, never mine, but the mortgage my parents had roped me into co-signing when I was 25. "It's just paperwork," they said then. "Your sister needs somewhere stable to raise her future family." That house now stood half empty with Victoria still living there, my parents covering just enough of the payments to keep it afloat. My name was on every deed, every lien, every risk. Denise didn't sugarcoat it. "This will be the hardest to untangle. Mortgages are anchors, but if we prove coercion and financial abuse, you can petition to remove your obligation. It'll take time, but it's possible." The hearings stretched for weeks. Each time my parents glared from across the room, their whispers sharp enough to cut. Ungrateful, selfish, abandoning family. But Denise's steady presence kept me rooted. With every affidavit, every highlighted document, every court order signed, I felt the weight shift. Chains loosening. The hardest moment came when I revoked their power of attorney. Years ago, in a haze of misplaced trust, I'd signed papers allowing my father to manage certain accounts in case of emergency. That trust had been twisted into control bills paid late. In my name, investments shifted without my consent. Sitting in the notary's office, pen in hand, I felt a wave of nausea. "Are you sure?" the clerk asked gently. "Yes," I said, voice trembling but firm. "I'm done letting them own me." When the papers were stamped final and official, I cried, not out of sadness but relief. It felt like breathing air I hadn't tasted in years. My parents' response was swift. "Another Facebook post, another round of whispers. Clara has cut us off. After all we've sacrificed, she's abandoned her family for strangers." But this time, their words slid off me, because now their sacrifices weren't mine to carry. Their debts weren't mine to pay. Their lies weren't mine to silence. One evening, Leah found me shredding old bank statements, the pile of confetti-like paper growing higher in the bin. She poured me tea and sat across the table. "Feels good, doesn't it?" I nodded, a small smile breaking through. "It feels like finally stepping out of their house, even though I haven't lived there in years." Denise called later that week with final confirmation. The mortgage obligation is in process of removal. Credit cards are cleared, power of attorney revoked. "Clara, you're financially free." The words left me stunned. Free, a word I hadn't dared to imagine. For years, my parents had convinced me my strength existed only to serve them, that my worth was measured by what I gave up for Victoria. But sitting in my quiet apartment, no bills tied to her name, no signatures binding me to their debts, I realized strength was something else entirely. Strength was saying no. Strength was cutting the cords even when they frayed with guilt. Strength was choosing myself for once. And for the first time, I felt it not as a burden, but as power. Healing did not come like lightning. It came like rain, slow and steady, soaking into the cracks I didn't even realize were there. After the court hearings, after the smear campaigns, after cutting the financial chains, I sat alone in my apartment and asked myself the question I had been too afraid to face. What now? Leah was the one who urged me toward therapy. She drove me to the first appointment herself, sitting with me in the waiting room until my name was called. "You don't have to do this alone," she said, her hand warm over mine. And she was right. For the first time, I walked into a room where someone didn't know. My parents didn't know, Victoria didn't know the stories spun against me. The therapist only knew me, and she listened. Really listened. No interruptions, no accusations, no whispers of "you're overreacting." That silence was more healing than any words. Week after week, I unraveled the years of gaslighting. We traced back to birthdays, missed debts, imposed bruises, dismissed. I learned to name what had been done to me: emotional abuse, financial exploitation, scapegoating. Naming it gave me power. It wasn't my fault. It never had been. Meanwhile, Leah remained my steady presence. She'd show up with homemade soup, sit with me through the long silences, remind me to laugh again. Denise checked in too, her voice practical but kind. Healing is part of justice, Clara. Don't forget that. But the real turning point came one evening when I scrolled through a survivor forum Leah had recommended. Story after story appeared women and men who had endured golden child dynamics, who had been cast aside by families determined to protect an abuser. Their words mirrored mine so closely I felt like I was reading my own diary. For the first time, I wasn't alone. That's when the idea sparked. What if I created something for people like me? I called it Quiet Strength. A small support group, at first just 5 of us sitting in a church basement folding chairs arranged in a circle. I shared my story not as a victim, but as someone still standing. They shared theirs. Tears flowed, yes, but also laughter, relief, solidarity. Each week, the circle grew 10, then 20, then more. People brought friends, colleagues, neighbors. Word spread online. Quiet Strength wasn't just a group, it became a community. We met twice a week, and I watched transformations happen. Shoulders that had hunched under shame straightened. Voices that had quivered grew steady. People who thought they were alone realized they weren't. And in helping them, I helped myself. My parents, of course, dismissed it. Another post appeared online. "Clara is exploiting others with her so-called support group. She thrives on drama." But this time, their words didn't even sting, because I knew the truth, and so did everyone who sat in that circle with me. Victoria never reached out. Last I heard, CPS still monitored her closely. Whether she ever changed, I don't know. And for once, I realized it wasn't my responsibility to know. I was free, truly free. One afternoon, as sunlight streamed through the blinds of our meeting room, a new member lingered after everyone left. She was young, barely 20, eyes swollen from crying. "I thought I was crazy," she whispered. "That's what my parents always said. But hearing your story, I realize I'm not." I placed a hand on her shoulder, smiling gently. "You're not crazy. You're stronger than they want you to believe. That's why you're here." And in that moment, I saw the full circle of my journey. From the slap at the baby shower to the hospital to the courtroom to the smear campaigns, everything had led me here. To this moment of offering someone else what I had once begged for proof that the truth matters and that healing is possible. I still have scars. Some nights I wake with echoes of my mother's voice in my ears. Sometimes I glance at my reflection and half expect to see that red mark on my cheek again. But now I know those scars don't define me. They remind me of what I survived and how far I've come. The last time Leah and I walked out of a Quiet Strength meeting, she squeezed my hand and said, "Look at you. You turned pain into power." And for the first time, I believed it. Because family isn't always the people you're born to. Sometimes family is the friend who photographs your bruises so you can't be gaslit again. Sometimes it's the attorney who fights for your freedom with every document filed. Sometimes it's the strangers who sit in a circle and remind you you're not alone. I don't know what the future holds, but I know this: I am no longer the girl silenced at a baby shower or the scapegoat painted cruel. I am Clara Jennings, survivor, founder of Quiet Strength, a woman who walked through betrayal and built something unbreakable on the other side. And if you're watching this, if you've ever been dismissed, gaslit, or called too dramatic, this is for you. You're not crazy, you're not alone, and your quiet strength is louder than their lies. If you've stayed with me through this story, thank you. I know it wasn't easy to hear because it wasn't easy to live, but I share it because I know there are others out there who've been told the same poisonous words I heard all my life. You're dramatic, you're cruel, you're too much. Let me tell you what I wish someone had told me years ago. You are not too much. You are enough. Your pain is real and your voice deserves to be heard. When my sister slapped me in front of everyone and my parents ran to her side, I thought I was utterly alone. But I wasn't. And neither are you. Somewhere out there are people ready to stand beside you to call the truth by its name, to remind you that you are not invisible. That's why I started Quiet Strength. Because healing doesn't come in isolation, it comes in community. If my story resonated with you, I invite you to hold on to that message. You are not crazy, and you are not alone. And now I want to hear from you. Have you ever been betrayed by the very people who were supposed to protect you? Have you ever been gaslit into silence? Share your story in the comments because telling the truth out loud is the first step to reclaiming it. If this story moved you, please take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and click the notification bell so you don't miss future stories. Each week, we shine a light on what families try to bury, and we show that justice, whether in court and community or in your own heart, can be found. And if you're watching from somewhere far away, I'd love to know, where are you joining us from? Drop your city, your state, your country in the comments. It always reminds me how wide this community really is. How many of us are bound together by experiences we never asked for but refuse to be defined by. Finally, if you or someone you know is in danger right now, please don't wait. Reach out, call your local hotline, tell a trusted friend. Document everything. Evidence never blinks and your truth matters. I walked into a baby shower thinking I was the invisible sister, the one who would always be shoved aside. I walked out knowing I was stronger than the lies that had caged me for decades. And so are you. This is Clara Jennings, and this is my story. Thank you for listening, and remember, family is not just who you're born to. Family is who chooses to stand with you when the rest of the world turns away.